Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today's yet another exciting video, and today it's going to be on the new grinding room. So I finished it out yesterday. I've got like 10 minutes worth of grinding done in there. So this video we're going to go through. We're going to check to see how I built it, kind of go over my thoughts on why I built it the way I did. The reason that I decided to go with box fan filters versus like a dust collection type system. And then we're going to do some test runs right quick. And then I'm actually going to go back and watch this video and see if I can see the dust patterns in the air and see if what I think is happening is actually happening. So an awful lot to cover, but it ought to be really dang exciting. So so first of all, I got to kind of apologize. This right here, you're at kind of a funny angle because I got the chicken coop in the way. Moved to the new place, and we've, out in the county, and my wife's always wanted chickens, and so here we can have them. Well, Murdoch's, I think it was this week they started selling the chicks, or they were supposed to. And so far the plan is I think Tuesday afternoon we're going to run down and she's going to pick her chicks out and then bring them home. So her birthday was a couple of days ago, and so I went ahead and built her a chicken coop for her birthday because she'll be needing that here in a month or so. And I've got to get my boy out here to help me move the thing because it's I don't know. I mean, it's the first chicken coop I've ever built, so I don't know if this is a big one, compared to everything else, but it's a 4x4 main, 4x4, main square footage in here, and then the nesting box is bigger, so, and of course it's right in the middle where I would normally put the camera at to be able to show you this, so it's in the way. But anyways, okay, so dust collection. So, I told you in one of my other videos that, when I moved into well, maybe I haven't told you that because I haven't published that video yet. The one where I said goodbye to the old shop. When I started off being a knife maker, I didn't plan on being like a production knife maker. I just wanted to make a hunting knife that I enjoyed more than, the ones that I could purchase. And that kind of turned into making them for my hunting buddies. And then, my wife conned me into selling a couple of them. And then I sold way more knives than I ever thought I was going to, which is a blessing and a curse. So then I started making knives all the dang time, right? Well, since I didn't design my shop was a two-car garage. Since it wasn't designed as a shop, it was just a guy in a two-car garage, making knives. So an awful lot of the stuff that was in there wasn't designed to handle that. And a big thing on that was the dust, okay? And now I realized that my old shop was dusty, right? Well, I didn't realize how dusty it was until I moved out of it. In places like up on top of shelves, because I had floor-to-ceiling shelves in there, the dust in there was, some of it was that thick. I mean, I kid you not, a 1/4 inch thick worth of dust. And who knows what that dust had in it, there's steel, there's, one of 30 different types of wood that I grind, Micarta G10, just all kind of nastiness, right? Plus normal dust. So this place, now that I have it, the ceiling up and I have the heat source, and the walls are mostly finished except for that one corner. The bathroom is framed in so that in the springtime we can run lines to it and get it in service. The benches are up and all that kind of stuff. The next thing is grinding. I was going to wait a little bit before I did this project, build the grinding room and everything, but the dogs, you guys have seen my Labradors, the boys, they're not fixed, and so they're settling down now, but they have marking problems. In the old house, it was pretty much under control. Moving to the new house, I think maybe they have to one-up each other, so they're constantly peeing, or they were constantly peeing in the house. But I think we got them broke of that finally. But, you know, I don't want to leave them in the house by themselves all day when I'm out here working. And it's still been too cold to leave them, you know, in the dog run. And, you know, you hate to leave them boxed up all day long. So I've been bringing them out here into the shop. And there's plenty of room around here, you know. Doc chases a tennis ball all over the dang place. Claire typically stays like right, you know, at my feet. And then Wyatt, you know, he kind of, you know, spends his time tormenting his brother or chewing on a bone or just sitting in a lazy chair next to the wood stove. But Claire, she is the problem. When I've been, the little bit of grinding that I've done, and this is kind of the way this has been going lately, is that, so I got all the power and everything fixed, right? I got a batch of 4 knives I'm working on. Well, I went to go grind those knives, and I realized, well, heck, where's my micrometer? And of course, couldn't find my micrometer. So I spent the rest of that day looking for my micrometer. Got the micrometer, get over to the grinder, okay, start grinding knives. Well, then Claire kept being right next to my feet. And I kept telling her, I said, honey, you know, this dust isn't good for your lungs, you know, go sit in one of the chairs, you know, or chase Doc around, do whatever, but not right there. So she'd go, and then I'd grind another couple of passes, and then she'd be right there again. And I said, well, if you're going to sit there, you got to wear a mask. And she looked up at me and said, I am not wearing a mask. So, well, now we've got another problem we got to fix. So that's where this one came in. So I went ahead and built the grinding room quite a bit before I was planning on it. But this ought to keep the dogs safe, you know, because, I mean, if they're going to be in the shop, you know, we ought to give them the same protection that we give ourselves. And if she won't wear a mask and she won't sit in the lazy boy, you know, or stay away, then we got to keep her away from the grinding. So anyway, so I built the grinding room a little bit earlier than what I was planning. So it seems like most knife makers, when you talk about dust control, everybody talks about dust collection systems. Now, I've never had a dust collection system, with the exception of, you know, the little port on like a you know, a miter saw that you hook up to a shop vac, right? I can see that dust collection systems in my head, so since I've never really worked with them, in my head they're designed more for woodworkers, you know, so you're sucking up wood dust, and that's it. Wood dust, or maybe, you know, if you grind a little bit of micarta or something like that. But basically, the dust that's going into those collection systems is at room temperature and it's not on fire, okay? Well, as knife makers, you know, we work on a variety of materials. You know, you work on wood, G10, micarta, high carbon steel, stainless steel, titanium, copper, brass, bronze, I mean, you name it, right? And a lot of that stuff, as it's being ground, is hot. You know, I mean, you get sparks all over the place when you're grinding steel. And so that, I just have kind of a problem in my head about building a system that's designed to collect dust and then putting sparks into it. You know, I mean, I've had, just like everybody else has had, you know, a pile of dust, and then, or, you know, like the magnet that you put on the back of your grinder to collect extra metal shavings. Well, you know, it gets all fuzzy with metal shavings, and sometimes you'll get a hot piece in there, and it'll ignite the shavings that are on that magnet, and it'll just sit there and glow, kind of like when you put a 9-volt battery into some fine stainless steel wool. And sometimes, you know, I mean, you might have a piece, you know, a pile that's smoldering 2 hours after you finish grinding. Well, if that's out on the floor, it's easy to see, it's easy to smell, you know, it's easy to take care of. If that's inside a container full of dust, I just don't think, I mean, I don't like that idea. So I got to thinking about it, and, you know, I've heard about the box fan with the filter setup, right? Where you take a 20-inch box fan and you put a 20-inch furnace filter on the side of it, and then you put it wherever it is that you're working, turn it on, and the idea is that it sucks the air through the filter and then cleans it, you know, as it goes through. The times that I've tried that, it really didn't work worth the crap, okay? I mean, yeah, it did collect some, you know, but it didn't, it wasn't very definitive, you know. So you're working in a room and you build this thing and you turn it on, and yeah, over like 3 or 4 weeks, you know, that filter gets dirty. Well, okay, well, over 3 or 4 weeks it gets dirty, well, then what's the point of even using it, right? But I think that's in like an open area. So when I, you know, was kind of mapping out the shop, I had the idea to build this grinding room with these fans and direct the air to where it was, you know, to where I controlled the air to where it would move in such a manner that it would protect me and protect the shop and still filter the air at the same time. So that's what we're going to look at right now. So let's go take a look. Well, actually, here, I'll just kind of point out some stuff to you. Okay, so the room, let's get back. Oh no, there it is. All right, so the room is, well, I didn't measure it. Well, I know I measured it when I built it, otherwise, I want to say it's probably like, oh, okay, so it's 5 foot from the door to the back wall. So 5 foot from here to here, okay? And then it is roughly 10 foot from the bathroom wall there to this corner. So 10 foot by 5 foot. We've got almost 10 foot tall ceilings, okay? So we've got a 10 by 10 by 5. These are standard box fans, okay? The purple ones I got from Walmart. That was just the color that they had. They were $20 and change a piece, okay? So that's $80 worth of fans before taxes. And then, but they didn't have 8 fans. So I got what they had, that's why I got them in purple. And then I went to Menards and a couple days later, and they had the white ones up here. Same fan, they were $20 and change at Walmart, they were $25 and change at Menards. I want to say the fans on the casing where they're written, you know, like amperage and stuff, it looks to me like it said either 0.3 or 0.8. It's either a 3 or an 8 as far as amperage draw. So at the very most, you know, even considering startup and, you know, extra amperage pulling air through the filters, each one of these fans is going to draw 1 amp, you know, on startup. So it's probably a little bit less than that. So at most, with all these fans, you're pulling 8 amps. Those dust collection systems I've seen typically run on a 1-horse motor, which, you know, I've have one-horse motors that are, you know, anywhere from 8 amps all the way up to 13 amps. So this system should draw less power than like a normal dust collection system. So anyway, so the basic idea is that, and we'll come over here to the side so you can kind of see that. So the basic idea is you got these 4 fans pointed that way, and you got those 4 fans pointed that way. So as they're running, they should circulate like this. Well, not in a circle here, but you know, the air off the top of the ceiling should come across, get drawn down through the grinding room, and then get pushed out into the floor, okay? And that's kind of the way I'd rather it be, you know, I mean, because, you know, I wouldn't want to vent what I'm grinding outside, you know, I mean, you know, if I was grinding nothing but pine or, you know, hickory or something like that, okay, fine, great, you know, I mean, or steel, you know, vent it all outside. But us knife makers, we don't do that. We grind, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff, and you never know what that stuff is going to do to, you know, the outside. So, you know, you'd hate to, you know, put a vent where you're blowing all your dust out into the yard, and then, you know, you grind something, you know, like cocobolo or something, and your wife's rose garden doesn't like cocobolo dust, and it kills all her roses. That would suck. So I wanted to kind of keep it all, you know, in here because you can sweep it up, put it in the trash can, and there it's contained. Also, all the air that's in this shop, you know, costs quite a bit to heat or to cool. So you just want to filter out the dust and keep the conditioned air. All right. So that was the idea, was that the air would come in off the ceiling, come down, and then go out. I'll be standing here. Well, we'll go inside. So that was all. First of all, cost. Okay, so since we're already there, like I said, these fans right here were $80 for 4 of them. Those fans up there were $100 for 4 of them, so that's $200. An interior door at Home Depot, that's a 30-inch door, was $87. The plywood was $10 a sheet, and there's one. Well, I already had the bathroom and the extra, you know, the walls behind it done, so I just needed 1, 2, 3, probably 4 sheets of plywood and scrap. 2x4s and everything. So I figure, you know, total with the room was about $400, which if you're going to build a grinding room, you're still going to need the door and the walls and everything. So that's $200 you're going to have to spend, you know, no matter if you go with a dust collection system or a dust filtration system like this. So, you know, the fans are the only difference in the cost. Oh, and I guess the wiring and the duct work if you were to do a dust collection system. Okay, so here is the grinding room. Now we're going to run into problems being so close to, or you know, so close to the camera. So that was the first belt storage. Now that I've got these extra interior walls, I can go ahead and put my hooks up here for the belts, and then that wall and that wall for the belts also. Right now, all I have as far as wiring is, let's see there. Yeah, okay, so these power strips. You know, power strips are great because you plug them in, they've got an on-off switch. All right, so right now we've got an extension cord running from one of the wall outlets up here to the top. There we go. And then we got 2 power switches, or power strips plugged in, you know, with the fans, right? I want to say that the fans up top are on low right now. Well, they're set on low, they're not plugged in or running yet because it'll get kind of loud. The grinders that we have in here are, you know, the 3-wheeled treadmill grinder, the 4x36 for, you know, handle scales and stuff, my variable speed 2-horse, the fixed speed 1-horse, and then right now this grinder right here, well, there's 2 of them. There's the 1x42 and 7-inch disc, I think, and then the 9-inch disc in the back. This one is not going to stay in here. It's coming out, and I'm going to build another 3-wheel grinder and put in that place. I haven't decided if I'm going to do like another treadmill grinder build or you know, go with like a variable speed with the well, you guys know about that. Anyways, so these are the grinders that are in here. You can see that I did spend about 10 minutes the other day grinding a 2x4. Just kind of noticing the air patterns and everything. And you can see how much dust is on those filters. Now these filters, I'm sure somebody is going to ask, I got 2 different types of them. We've got a DuPont 7500 Basic Allergen. They're both 20 by 1. Man, this tripod, it's kind of tight in here with the tripod. And then this one is a 3M. I don't see that there's a number on it anywhere. Well, it's a 3M whatever it is. The times that I've played with the box fan filter before, your filter choice is kind of big because, you know, these fans don't have a whole lot of, you know, they're a volume fan, not a pressure fan. So they're designed, I can't see where you guys are at here. Can't see what you see. Let's see, get out of the way there. Okay. They're a volume fan, not a pressure fan. So, no, that's not going to work either. So if you restrict them too much, then they just, they can't handle too much restriction. All right. So what we're going to do now here is do a test run. All right. Can you see? Maybe right about there. Now this room seems to be plenty big enough when I'm in here grinding by myself and don't have a camera. All right. So I've got two different types of wood. Got just regular old pine, a chunk of 2x4, and then I've got some purple heart. I'm hoping that the purple will show up in the air a little bit better. Well, either way, we'll have something that's white and we'll have something that's purple floating up in the air to kind of see the air patterns. Before we actually start the test, though, what I found was when I started it off, to begin with, 4 fans up top pointed in, 4 fans on bottom with filters pointed out. Okay, the idea was that if you draw air out, you have to replace that air, right? So that's why I did 4 and 4. I kind of figured that the filters would slow down the amount of air going out. But the fans coming in would create positive pressure in here, so it would actually help more airflow go through the filters. The little bit of grinding that I saw, I didn't really see that was the case. It was kind of like the air coming in was way overpowering the air going out, and the air coming in was kind of getting confused. Like it was coming in and then it was trying to find a way out, so it was swirling all over the place while this kept sucking air out. So these filters were catching stuff, but it wasn't as smooth as what I would like. So what I did was I cut these to medium, and I didn't really notice much of a difference. So I cut them all to low, and then I did notice a difference, but the air still seemed to be confused. So then I cut 2 of them completely off, and that was a big difference. And then I cut all of them completely off, and so far that was the best. It was like, the fans sucking the air out were creating a vacuum in here, and it was drawing just as much air as what it could use, and the air wasn't getting confused, and the air patterns looked, while you're grinding like this, looking at the dust, it looked like that's what was happening. So I guess we'll find out. What I did notice was that even with those fans cut off, gravity is taking the big chunks and putting them to the floor. But the big chunks isn't really what you're worried about. The big chunks, your nose and your nose hairs and everything else filters the big chunks out, and gravity drops them to the floor fast enough. It's that fine stuff that stays suspended in the air. That's the stuff that gets into your lungs and starts jacking you up, right? So, but with this airflow up here and this suction, I'm staying up above where the dust is being created. Now, I still wear a mask. I'm not going to today because you got to hear me talk. So I'm staying above the level of the dust, and as long as the air is coming down and past me, that way my mask has to work less. But I did notice that yesterday when I was grinding, this room didn't get all smoky or dusty, and then when I stepped out, the rest of the shop was really nice and clean. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and leave the fans off. I'll grind a little bit. This is a fresh 36 grit. It's one of the belts that I use for shaping handle materials. It's an A to Z belt. Zirconium, I think. I get them from Pops there. Anyway, so We'll go ahead and turn the grinder on with no fans. We'll do some pine and some Purple Heart. Then I'll turn one of these switches on. That'll be these two fans going out. Do a little bit of grinding. Turn that switch on. So then we got all 4 fans sucking out. And then if we have time, we'll go ahead and plug in and see if some of these are on. All right. So, and it's not cold, but I figure I better toss a shirt on over top. So my wife wants to go shopping later on today, so I'll be less dusty. Okay, so we got some Purple Heart and we got some pine. Okay, so from where I was standing, the big stuff was always falling straight to the floor, and you can see a big old pile of it right here on the floor where it's supposed to be, right? But the little stuff, you know, was kind of generally going down a little bit, but a lot of it was getting sucked back up by the belt, you know, as the belt turns around and comes back up. The second I turned this set of fans on, now all that fine stuff was generally going this way. And you can tell, yeah, you can see some Purple Heart in that filter already. Let's get you down here. I mean, just that little bit of grinding. There's the pile of dust on the floor. And you can see there's mostly pine, because that's what I was grinding yesterday. But there is some Purple Heart in that filter. Alright, so now what we need to do is set up. Maybe I'll get you a little bit closer for this part. Maybe we no. Let's do this all over again. Only this time with the camera just as tight up to that as we can get it, and see if we can see the dust better. Okay, so we'll do that same 3 all over again. First is no fans, then we'll turn this fan or this set of fans on, and then we'll turn that set of fans on. Okay, so now what we're going to do is plug in this set of fans over here. Well, apparently that one I left off. Okay, so now I have one fan up top on low. Okay, so we got all the fans turned off and the grinder is turned off. So now, and you know the air in here, you know, when I'm looking at you right now, I don't see anything in the air, you know, suspended in the air. I suppose if we were turning the lights off and shine a flashlight, we'd be able to see some. But, well, actually, you know what? I got a flashlight. Let's see if, I kind of doubt the camera will pick that up. And the outside of the shop really isn't all that dark, but let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, I can see some, but it's not. You know, in my old shop, I would get done with that amount of grinding, and there would definitely be dust floating in the air that I could see with the naked eye without having to mess with the lights. So let's go outside, or out into the shop, and see what the rest of the shop looks like. Yeah, there is nothing out here. Now granted, this is a much larger air volume than my old shop, but it's still, it looks really good in here. I mean, the air, I'm not seeing, you know, a lot of dust or anything in the air. And it looks like the filters are doing a pretty good job. A lot of that dust that's on the floor is, you know, from when I was building the chicken coop. And the edges of the cuts, you know, from the OSB. So anyway, so it's going to be really interesting when I go back and watch this video and see if from, you know, because I mean I can see what see the air patterns right here, but I can't be in two places at the same time. So it's going to be really interesting to see if from your angle, if that dust is doing what it's doing, what it appears to be seeing, or what I'm seeing, you know, from my view. But you know, this is huge compared to no control over dust in my old shop. You know, and I can't imagine that this stuff isn't cumulative. You know, where, you know, I mean, I've been making knives now, you know, kind of as a profession for, you know, around 10 years or so. You know, and I'm sure that, you know, in that amount of time, you know, I've got a little bit of lung damage, you know, from all the stuff that I've been grinding. Well, I can't imagine, like I said, in this shop, I'm planning on spending another 40 years grinding, hammering, whatever. You know, so that's 4 more times what I've done already. I think this is going to be a really big help. If this doesn't work out, which, like I said, so far, everything looks like it's working. Not quite like what I was expecting, but it does look like it's working. So I'm really excited to play with it some more and enjoy clean air inside my shop. The upkeep and everything, you know, these fans, like I said, even if I don't use the ones on top, that doesn't hurt my feelings, because you can always use more of these box fans, you know, I mean, for, you know, drying out carpet that has been flooded, or, running them to dry out, you know, a paint project, or, you know, you can just never have enough of these box fans, and they typically don't last all that long. Of course, a lot of times you lend them out and then they never come back. But anyway, so even if I don't use the ones on top, well, then I'll just keep them up there and we'll use them as spares, you know, as the purple ones wear out. So that part doesn't really bother me all that much. But, you know, even if it doesn't work and I end up getting like a regular dust collection system, you know, I still had to build the room. So anyway, and then on top of that, now that I have the room built, you know, that was the next plan for the overall shop, you know, was to decide where the grinding room was going to go. Once that was definitive, you know, that's where it's going to be, well, then I can go ahead and set up the forge tree and decide exactly where it's going to be, because I have to decide where the forge tree is going to be before I decide where the power hammer is going to sit. You know, because a power hammer, it works way better when it's bolted down. It will work okay not bolted down, and I'll probably run it like that for, I'll probably go ahead this next coming week, finish cleaning up the forge tree and getting it and the propane tank and everything where it needs to be, and then getting the power hammer off I've got it on rollers right now so that I can move it. Probably go ahead and get it onto the ground and get it plugged in. It's probably going to need some tweaks, you know, the move, you know, things a lot of times shift a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get the power hammer up and running. And then I've got some of the extra tin that the fellow left me from the pole barn build. So that's going to get mounted back, you know, up against the wall as a heat shield. And then so then I'll have the forges set up, the anvil I went ahead and unboxed and put all the hammers around it and everything. Then I got to find a place for, you know, little bits of scrap steel. And then once the power hammer is set up and everything, and I know how much room I have, then we can probably go ahead and finish out these two sections right here, wall, put up the shelves that are going to go there. Eventually there's going to be a hydraulic forging press. I've got to build one, so it'll get put right there. This spring or summer we'll end up building a shed, and the riding lawnmower will come out. And then sooner or later finish the meat locker, or start the meat locker, and get it all built, and away we go. But I am pretty very, very excited about the grinding room. You know, Claire is, I tell Claire that she is my favorite female yellow lab on the face of the earth. Don't tell her, but she's the only female yellow lab on the face of the earth that I've had. So, you know, I mean, she's my dog. I like her, and otherwise I wouldn't keep her around. And if she's not going to listen and stay, you know, on the other side of the shop when I'm grinding, then we got to find a way to protect her lungs, you know. The boys, you know, they don't really, well, they're boys, you know, they'd rather chase a ball or gnaw on a bone or whatever. But Doc would toss his ball up behind the grinders and be playing around back up in there. And even though I wasn't making dust, you know, he's probably kicking up dust from there. So, so this will keep the dogs' lungs safe, and will, you know, help my lungs out quite a bit also at the same time. And then one more thing, and then I'll shut you off. I believe I'm actually going to paint. Yeah, me paint. I don't like painting. And I only typically paint when there's a purpose. Like, so this chicken coop, I didn't paint it, I stained it. But that's more to protect the wood than it is to make it look cool or anything. But this, I believe I'm actually going to, I'll have to think about it, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to go ahead and paint it. I'll have to find myself some white paint, and I'll paint OSB. And the reason for that is this is going to be my new pattern wall. You guys have seen before that that my patterns and my knife blanks typically get, you know, hung up on the shelves, because in my old shop that was the only place to put them. Now here I went ahead and redid it. So these right here, these two shelves here, these two shelves here, plus the ones up here, those are all heat treated blanks. You know, if you got the kiln or the forge lit and you're heat treating, you know, if you got orders for 3, heat treat 10. You know, that way, you know, you average out the cost of warming up the kiln or the forge, you know, over 10 blades instead of 3 blades. And then, you know, you're always going to grind them or finish them out. And on this set of shelves here, these are some of my patterns. I started off 1 nail per pattern, but then I realized I was going to run out of space. So most of these, you know, from here over, most of them have got at least 2 or 3 patterns on each nail. From here over here, they're all 1 pattern per nail. And then there's a big old pile of patterns tucked back in there somewhere. You know, each one of these patterns, well, you know, some of them I've only made 2 or 3 out of, others I've made hundreds of. So that's an awful lot of patterns. But anyway, so those patterns are now gonna get all hung up on these these nice big walls right here. That one, and then this one, and then probably that one also. And that way, you know, I'll be able to, you know, if somebody emails and says, hey, I'd like a paring knife, and I say, well, which pattern would you like? You know, there's no other place like on my website or anything where I have, okay, well, these are the 10 different paring knife patterns that I have. Well, with this, I'll be able to either snap a picture of them and put them up on the website, or when somebody says, hey, I'd like a paring knife, and I say, hey, which pattern would you like? I can include a picture of, you know, this row of paring knives. Slap a ruler up next to it, and then they have some sort of a reference. So that'll be pretty cool. And yeah, it'd be nice to see all my patterns up on a wall, you know, 1 pattern per nail. That'd be pretty cool. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I'm actually going to go back and relook at this one to see the air patterns on the grinding. And I think this is, you know, when I looked onto YouTube to try to find alternatives to the typical dust collection system, I really didn't find a whole lot. So with a little bit of luck, this, you know, this will help some other guys out. Like I said, I think the advantages of this over the traditional dust collection is cost, simplicity. You know, well, the fans don't cost very much. The simplicity, you don't have to run ducting to each machine. Fire control, you know, I'd much rather sweep or take a shot vac and then get the stuff up off the floor, and then take the furnace filters and then, you know, knock them off or blow them out with an air hose, you know, because everything is out in the open. So if you do have a pile of dust, and you get an ember in one of those, you know, a hot piece of steel, and it starts, you know, smoldering, you know, a pile of dust like this, you know, in the floor, kind of out in the middle of nowhere where it gets enough air where it can go ahead and smolder and make smoke that you can smell and go find it and put it out. To me, that seems like a better idea than putting it inside a sealed container with, you know, a gallon or 2 gallons of dust all the way around it that might smolder for 6 or 10 hours before, you know, it finally, you know, ignites and catches on fire. That's just in my head anyways. And, you know, I'd never seen a system built like this before, so I had to try it. Try it and share it with you. So, hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the idea. You know, I mean, let me know if your thoughts, if you've seen something like this work very well before. You know, if maybe you saw something in those air currents that I didn't see. Yeah. But anyways, I think it's going to work out really well, and I hope it does. And if it does, I hope somebody else uses it and protects their and their dogs' lungs also at the same time. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.